You're listening to the Rogers Sporting Goods Podcast. This is Aaron Jones.
This is Chandler Smith, and I hate long intros, so let's get into it.
And these are the other two guys that are going to join us?
So that's Jody Pagan. He's with Eco Protection Systems, and he's also manages Five Oaks. And then there's the two young men out there. That's Daniel Duke and Brandon Bennett. They're going to be in. And then this is Sean Hagan from Ducks Unlimited.
Okay, perfect. So, usually we like to start this with kind of like a funny or interesting story. Jeff, I know you've got plenty of stories. So,
Well, I could probably tell the story about probably blowing my MCL out. Riding a friggin' bouncy horse and lasso and stuff.
Do it. Let's do it. I want to know how you blew out your MCL. How long ago was this?
Tuesday.
Oh.
Tuesday.
So that's why you got a little hitch in your giddy up.
I got a big hitch in the giddy up. Yeah. So, if you're ready to go.
Yeah.
All right.
I want to hear the story.
You know, Sitka, I've been a Sitka rep for, this is 10 years, 12 years. And every year we have a Sitka Olympics, the Rep Olympics. And the Rep Olympics are all sorts of ridiculous games. So, like, you got to shotgun a beer and then pick a pellet rifle up or a 22 and hit a target, and then, or actually shotgun a beer, run around something, then pick the gun up and hit a target, or shoot a recurve bow, or in the case this year, the first event was the game Flip Cup, but instead of doing it with your hand, you did it with foam arrows, an arrow that had a foam head on it, and the cups were on a table. And so, we kind of got through that, no big deal, really not much physical activity. But the next game was you had to get on these bouncy balls that you hop on, and then you had a ridiculous looking cowboy hat, a neckerchief or a bandana around your neck. You had to shotgun a beer, get all your stuff on, get on the horse, get your lariat, and hop down to this cooler that had a bull's head on it from Yeti, and lasso it, and then hop back. And whoever, of course, won, you got some points. And the whole key to the Sitka Olympics is you don't want to lose, because I guess the loser this year, and it's like 90 degrees out there, had to walk around in a Fanatic outfit and boots and everything, serving people for like 2 hours.
Oh my gosh!
It was ridiculous. That's what I heard. I had to leave to get here for the event. So anyway, my turn. I've been telling Justin, my sales manager, man, I shouldn't be doing this. We got a lot of stuff going on. We got elk hunt, a deer hunt, and my knee was already bothering me. He goes, "Nope, you're doing it. No excuses." So I said, "Okay." So sure enough, hop, and I feel something go wrong there. But I got to let me preface this. So the guy I was going against is a guy by the name of Park Burson. He's one of the reps in Cincinnati, and he's kind of the comedian of the whole deal. Well, one of the other reps came up to me and said, "Hey, I'll give you $100 if you lasso him instead of lassoing the bull." And so I'm like, "You're on." So he gets all his stuff on, and he's going in front of me, and I'm hopping behind him. And sure enough, we got a video of it that he's making his throws to the bull, and I'm getting all wound up. And I knew it was a one and done deal. And I've got one out here that we've messed around a little bit, but by no means am I a cattle roper. Lucky. Hit him the first freaking time and lassoed him, and those were my points. So I knew I scored because I knew I wasn't going to lose. And so I won that deal. And, of course, leaving, I didn't have to have any chance of losing the whole deal. But it was pretty comical.
Yes.
So, yeah. So,
but you got a little bit of hitch in your giddy up now.
A bad one.
Yeah.
So I think that so I was in ice bags the whole time I was out there. Another part of it, I'm not going to miss out on the partying either. And they pushed me around in a cart all the way up and down Main Street to the Cannery, the Crystal, Rockin' R, all the bars down there in a cart. So it was quite funny.
Yes, that's quite entertaining.
Yeah.
So first class service, you got to get pushed around everywhere.
Well, I'm the longest tenured rep and the biggest one there. So yeah, they had to take care of me.
That's funny. That's funny. So Josh, any battle stories?
I don't have many right now.
Yeah.
I was not prepared to come in with a comedic act. So, yeah.
That's okay. So we are down in Papenville, Missouri. Make sure I say that right.
Papenville.
No
So,
S.
Yes, no S. So I learned that. I think I've said it with an S before.
Yeah.
So Papenville, Missouri, and we're with a group of guys that are huge into waterfowl management and conservation. So you guys are familiar with me. This is Aaron, and I drug Mr. Josh Peck down here.
How you doing?
Yes, from Outdoor Limits. And Jeff, I'm going to go ahead and allow you to introduce yourself. And
Okay. So I'm Jeff Watt. I've been a sales rep in the hunting and fishing industry for 32 years. Rogers has been one of my customers for 32 years for different vendors and whatnot. And very, very avid duck hunter, and I would like to say wetland manager. I'm getting better every year, learning a lot of stuff. Learn a lot of stuff from the guys who are going to talk later too. But it's Josh is sitting over here to my left, and we had a brainstorming deal the last couple years about doing some stuff, and that's how we come up with the Osage Basin Wetland Symposium, which is one of the reasons you're here.
sure. Now, the actual name of your group down here is...
Well, I belong to a couple different clubs down
Okay.
here. So one of them is Black Acres, which is a little bit to the west or to the east. That is going to be one of the subject places. The other one is Shadow Oaks, which is another one of the subject places that we're going to see, which is just south of us here. But those are the duck
your
clubs.
clubs, but then you and Josh formed the...
Osage
We
Basin.
formed the Wetland Managers Cooperative, we're calling it basically. It's kind of the umbrella we're operating under for the symposium.
Sure.
So yeah, so it's a collective idea. You read the message we had there. That Jeff and I just kind of talked about. We needed more education in this part of the world, and so that's how it came about. And he was a conduit to kind of help it get going. And we put some talented people together to come help us do this. But
Sure.
Yeah, one of the big things was building habitat. Without the habitat, you don't have the ducks. Without the ducks, we don't have a passion or a lifestyle, and we for sure don't have a business. And so we know that if we can build the habitat and provide the habitat, it's going to help the ducks do what they're going to do. And take it a step farther is we want habitats that can be used when the waterfowl are flying south, migrating south, and then when they're not migrating back north. And I've been a moist soil seed guy for pretty much my whole waterfowl career. I've never really enjoyed the flooded corn. I know that it adds stuff to the whole food chain that a duck has to have to survive, but I've never been really a fan but a lot of people that plant that stuff, they just pull the plug the day the season's over so they can get it dried out so they can put more corn in there the next year. And that doesn't help the ducks that have already flown south, and then they got to come back north here and get to the breeding grounds and be able to be healthy to make a brood and go on. And that's what you'll notice too on our logo is it's a hen mallard instead of a greenhead, and that's the habitat part of it. Without them,
There's nothing.
we have nothing.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I like the idea, too, that, a lot of people, they have a chunk of ground, a duck lease or whatever, and they focus on killing the ducks, and that's it. They don't focus on, hey, they got to go back north.
Yeah.
So-
Well, we love to kill them.
Oh, yeah.
We love to kill
Yeah.
them. But we also love to see, we spend more time getting ready to kill them than we do shooting them.
Sure.
I mean, that's all there is to it. I mean, we basically do it 305 days.
Sure.
The day the season ends, we're thinking of what else to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Or how to do it again next year.
So, yeah, the killing part's the fun part. That's where you reap the rewards of all your work, but
Yeah.
you're focused on, again, all parts of management,
parts.
not just trying to put ducks on a lanyard.
Yep.
So, okay, awesome.
And it's something that with my job that I realized that there was a lack of knowledge and the educational experience wasn't there for people to learn more. There wasn't any avenue for them to go out and learn about wetland management like I've had the opportunity through my career and my education. So that's where this all kind of came together and providing diverse habitat on the ground like we do on public lands and trying to attract ducks, not only for the hunting, as you mentioned earlier, but to provide that habitat in the spring. And then really in the end, then it it does benefit a suite of birds that's way beyond waterfowl. It's shorebirds and herps and everything else. So we're diverse in our management. We benefit a lot more stuff, but the duck's the reason we're doing it.
Sure.
And it's easy sell when you got a landowner that really likes to shoot some ducks and wants to do that. We can teach them to manage a diversity of habitats in a different way. And so that's where we've kind of came together and developing properties and working on improving properties and trying to get that message out there. And so it just came together naturally. And this has been in the works for 3 years now. We've tried to get this started, and COVID hit, and then we had some other things come up. We just couldn't get it done a couple of years ago, and brought some other people in, and Jody and Mickey. Mickey won't be here today, but Jody will be here talking a little bit later, and they just said, yeah, let's do this. We'd love to come up there in your part of the world and start talking about some waterfowl management and trying to educate some people.
So this is the first year you've actually been able to do this because of, like you said, COVID and all of that.
All different things, but
Yeah.
the first year.
Awesome.
Yep.
And so you're expecting quite a few people, it sounds like.
Yeah, how many we have, Josh?
We had 57 signed up, coming from 6 different states, and now we're down like about 54 or 55. We had a couple guys that had some stuff to happen and couldn't be here, but the goal of this was to focus on the Osage Basin, West Central Missouri, and keep this kind of local. And hey, we're kind of greedy. We want ducks in our part of the world, and we want a lot of them here.
Well, that's right. And I mean, that's, again, being around and hearing about some of the other events that Mickey has done and up in north central Missouri or eastern Missouri, there hadn't been anything down here for us to do in this region. Mm-hmm. And even though it's only 2 or 3 hours north, it's a whole different set of challenges. And so that's the backbone of why we're trying to do it, is get everybody in this basin with similar thought process so the ducks stay here longer until the weather really pushes them out of here.
Sure.
But we just take care of them here, and everybody in the 40 miles?
Yeah.
40 miles from the Kansas state line down to Truman Reservoir, on the Osage River.
Sure.
Yeah.
And we had 30 something committed, and then we said, well, we had really only wanted 30, and then we hadn't even talked to anybody else, and then it went to it was easy to get to 50. We've got a waiting list. So.
Yeah, the demand was there, and that was what you put this event on. You're thinking, man, are people going to respond? Are they going to show up? They like this idea. And next thing you know, we're seeing our posts shared on Instagram. We do have an Instagram account for the Osage Basin Wetland Symposium, and it's showing up all over the gram. It's kind of cool. So I'm not a marketing guy. My daughter is, but I'm not. And it was really interesting to see people in Arkansas, Texas, and stuff, and then people that I've followed on Instagram for several years, all of a sudden sharing this thing, and the responses we got were pretty cool to see how positive people were, and the demand was there. So we hope, this is the first one, and we hope to maybe have another one and maybe expand our topics, look at some spring ecology of birds and how to manage your wetlands in the spring and evaluate them. So we hope it's first, and we know it's first. We hope it's not the last.
Right. And we've had a ton of help. I mean, without the help to do this, whether it be the design of our whole programs, the speakers, the conservation organizations, mm-hmm. I mean, retailers, we've had a ton of help. And without it, we wouldn't be able to do it.
Sure.
Or it wouldn't be as good. We'd be able to do it. It just might not be as good as it's going to be.
Mm-hmm. So we've talked a little bit about what your guys' goals and missions are with the symposium. What's the format of it? I know you've got some lectures, some talks, some field type stuff. What exactly do you guys have planned? And it's a couple days?
Yeah,
Yep.
We're doing a 3-day event. We're meeting this evening, and we're going to have a couple presentations and have a get together, because part of this cooperative is not just about the hunting. It's about hunters getting to know each other, managers getting to know each other, because there's a strong bond between hunters and waterfowlers, and it goes back a long ways. And so we want to create that community, and so that's part of the goal, one of the goals of the co-op. But so tonight we'll get together, have social hour, we'll have a couple presentations, and we're going to talk about moist soil management tonight with Mickey Heitmeyer, and then we will go in tomorrow. We'll go in the morning. We'll start out in the classroom again. We're going to talk about some of the Corps of Engineers requirements. Jody's going to talk about some of his management cornerstones for waterfowl management down at Five Oaks. And then we're going to have a presentation from Frank Nelson, who's a Missouri Department of Conservation fellow employee of mine. And he's going to talk about hydrogeomorphology, which is a big mouthful of words, but it's really about putting the right thing in the right place. Don't try and manage an oxbow lake for a cornfield, and then it's easier to manage a property that way. And we're going to talk about WRP tomorrow with Neil Young. And then we're going to go to the field after that. And we're going to tour some pretty phenomenal habitat tomorrow. We've had a very, very good growing season this year in our part of the world. And Jeff and the landowners we're going to go see have worked very hard to, provide some really, really good habitat that we can showcase, and also leave some of the bad stuff so we could, show what the bad stuff was, how they got to the good stuff. So we're going to talk about cropping for waterfowl. We're going to talk about doing some moist soil management and how to set your property up for hunting tomorrow.
Awesome. So everybody who's listening to the podcast, we've got a little bit different format for you today. We've had Josh and Jeff on here talking about the event that they've got this weekend and the symposium that we're here doing, but they're subject matter experts that are talking tomorrow. We're going to have them on here on the podcast as well. So definitely stay tuned for that. But a lot of information going to be thrown around in a couple of days, and that's awesome.
Yeah, a bunch. I mean, not only the lectures, but the information that the attendees are going to be receiving in pamphlets, brochures, and books. We've got one of the best books around for identifying moist soil plants in the Mississippi Alluvial Valley, which was, I think, University of Mississippi.
Yes.
Did that. And then we have another one that's a Waterfowler's Handbook that has been used. That was a Lee Frederickson book.
It came from Mississippi State.
Okay.
Kind of a compilation of several things. Waterfowl Management Handbook that was around in the 90s, and some other guides. It's a really broad management handbook that has a lot of good information in it for wetland managers.
But the best part is they're going to hear about it, see some slides and all that stuff, but then they're going to be able to go to the field and see exactly what techniques we use to do this.
Sure.
And it's not anything that is unobtainable by any one of these landowners. I mean, did a tractor, disc, broadcast seeder, or drill, brush cutters, herbicides, all that stuff. So it's really obtainable. You just need to know about it.
Mm-hmm. So you're providing that information for them.
Yep.
Awesome. And a place to gather with like-minded people. You can't beat that.
Not normally.
No. Good food.
Yeah, we're going to have some pretty good food,
good
too.
camaraderie. It's going to be good.
Excellent.
And I'd probably be remiss if I didn't mention my career. So I didn't really introduce myself.
you need to
stole
do
my
that.
thunder. So,
Yes.
But I am Josh Cussimanio. I'm a private lands conservationist for the Missouri Department of Conservation, and I serve Vernon and Bates County. And so that's how I've known Jeff for 22 years. I was a wildlife biologist at Four Rivers Conservation Area for 10 years, and then also at Shoal Osage for another 8 years. And so I met Jeff back in, it was like 2000 at the Galleons Waterfowl Weekend.
Yep.
And had kind of bumped around and met him here, or encountered him here and there. And then when I stepped in this position in 2018, he kind of got interested in more and more, and things just started rolling, and then we ended up here today. So it's been a pretty neat trip to get to this point, working on properties and improving them and developing some that he's purchased, and so we've had a good run so far. So we're excited.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, yeah, we'll have some of these other guys jump in, and we can talk a little bit about. We'll have them highlight kind of, I guess, what they're talking about. Obviously, we can't have them get too in depth like they will tomorrow, but there's a lot of knowledge that we can tap into. So we'll have some of those guys hop on and.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll get them.
Recording once again. Okay, guys, so we have had a few more individuals jump in. These are some of the guys that are talking tomorrow on their specialties and as far as like waterfowl, I guess, conservation management and everything that we discussed a little bit ago. So I'm going to have you guys kind of jump around and introduce yourselves.
Yeah, I'm Jody Pagan, the owner of Ecosystem Protection Service. We're a full-service company that does wetland restoration and consultation all over 27 states, 2 provinces in Argentina. 28 years I've been a wetlands biologist.
Okay.
So we work here in Missouri, but a lot in southeast Kansas. A lot of good friends there and a lot of good habitat. Louisiana, Mississippi, Texas, we've been around, and we've preached the gospel for some time now. So our real focus here this week, and just big applause for Jeff and Josh. I did this for a living for USDA NRCS for like 20 years, where I was in the national cadre, and so I trained government employees. And if you're not getting trained by the government or the state government, it seems that there's a big void in what we're doing. A lot of the conservation organizations should have already stepped up to do this. And so it's a real pleasure to be here.
Sure, exactly. Now, Josh, he does a lot of hunting in southeast Kansas, so
Sure
he's
do.
familiar with that territory. Now, do you strictly work with private individuals and duck clubs, or do you still work with government?
I deliver the WRE program for
Okay.
the NRCS in Arkansas. And then we do a lot of private lands work. We manage Five Oaks Duck Lodge, which has been around since 1983. Past president of DU, George Dunklin's the owner of that. Both Brandon Bennett and Daniel work on the staff there with me and for me, and just incredible managers. Moist soil management that everybody's kind of fuzzed up about here, it's an art, okay? It's a means of propagating natural vegetation that the waterfowl need way before man made a corn stalk. Ducks were eating wild millet and smartweed and all these things we'll talk about this week. So we've started, George and I started the Five Oaks Agricultural Research and Education Center. And Brandon was one of the first 4 graduate certificate program graduates this last spring. And so we teach them for a year. We teach them the art of managing on the ground, not book, tractors, power units, pumping water, cutting grass, spraying weeds, doing the things that it takes to propagate these plants. And so we're real proud of him. Daniel, longtime friend, went to work for me. Just one of the most incredible guys that looks at the ground and is able to adapt. So everybody should learn a lot from him if we can get him to talk.
Yeah. Go right ahead and keep.
Yeah, I'm Brandon Bennett. I'm a wetlands biologist with Ecosystem Protection Service. And like you said, I was in the first class of the Five Oaks Ag Research and Education Center graduate certificate program. And I was fortunate enough to be hired on by Jody, and I spend a lot of time around Five Oaks and surrounding properties and try to venture out and do whatever I can.
Awesome.
And my name is Sean Hagan. I'm the Director of Development for Western Missouri and Kansas for Ducks Unlimited. And my main job is to match donors with their passion and their investing in conservation goals and projects that match up with Ducks Unlimited's mission, and make it possible for them to leave a legacy through our work.
All right.
Daniel Duke, EPS. I handle all the day-to-day operations at Five Oaks, project manager for EPS as well.
Okay. So I guess let's briefly touch on what each of you guys are going to be kind of discussing this weekend, because I know there's a lot of information being thrown around.
I'll start. Since,
Okay.
Tomorrow morning we'll start, and we'll do the cornerstone. So back in the early 2000s, one of my friends had a really good TV show called The Management Advantage, and it was on the Outdoor Channel. Mm-hmm. We did a whole lot of this type stuff to try to educate people. And we wound up and wanted to put a DVD series together back when there was a DVD, not a podcast.
Yep.
And so we said, what are we going to name this? Waterfowl management. So we came up with kind of a 3-tiered approach to waterfowl management, and we called it the cornerstones of waterfowl management. And so you have hunter management, vegetation management, and water management. None of it's going to happen without those 3. You overshoot it, no good. You don't manage your weeds, no good. So anyway, we'll go through that. And so this will be my 18th duck season at Five Oaks. We're at 80,000 dead ducks. And the reason we're at 80,000 dead ducks and about 3.8 ducks per man per day is real simple. We put the money out in the habitat. Not a $2 or $3 million lodge, not fancy cars, putting it on the ground, because the habitat, if they're not going back fat and happy, we're not going to have a good hatch. So, you could call us a hunt master, Daniel or I, a hunt master, or PH, however you want to call it, duck guide, which is something I hate because I'm a wetlands biologist, but I've guided for 28 years. It's all about putting back because you get in, you get back what you put in. Well, I just was one of the gentlemen. I came up here in March and went all over this with Jeff and the cohorts here. And we talked about strategies to work on the habitat. Blew my mind when I rode around. I got here early this morning. Just really kicked it in. I mean, I'm so proud of them because in 1 year, it goes from half decent habitat or corn to just a plethora of moist soil plants, really good habitat, complexes. We talk a lot about that. We talk about all the life history requirements that a duck needs while he's here, especially that big fat mallard, because everybody wants to shoot him. So we'll really get in depth in that. And like Jeff said, management's 365 days a year. That's really what the buzz click on the deal was. Cornerstone's waterfowl management 365, because that's the life we live. So we're farming duck food, and I farmed a long time with Mr. Dunklin in rice farming, and he goes, you know, these farmers, it's my buddies over here at the Farm Bureau and whatnot, they go, they really think you're crazy. You're raising weeds out here in my fields for ducks, and they're trying to kill them to get a crop. So some will adopt it and some won't. But I promise you that there's one thing that's stuck in my mind for a long, long time. Everybody fusses about state and federal refuges, okay? They're not bad. They're going to sustain a population of birds if everything goes to Hades, okay? That's the reason for that. But they say, oh, they stay on the refuge all the time. Well, some of these WMAs up here, they got the best moist soil in the country, okay? I've been around here since the 90s. With Heidenmeyer and Doug Helmers and a bunch of guys up in that north central. Did a lot of workshops in Missouri for NRCS. And if you're a private landowner, why are you going to grow a cornfield and that's all you grow? When a duck needs lots of different things that these people will learn about this week. So don't let the state and feds beat you. Manage your property. Get up to that level, and let's do some good. And the hunting will come. If you manage it properly, the hunting will come.
Sure. Awesome. Now, I'll go ahead and have you talk about what really got you interested and want you to get involved with something like this, you're being the first graduate of the program.
Oh, man. I have known what I wanted to do from the time I was in kindergarten.
Really?
That is no joke. And I've kept on the straight and narrow since then, doing exactly this. Calling up people like Jody, going and shadowing him here and there, and then this graduate certificate program popped up at just the perfect time for me. So it's immediately after getting my bachelor's degree, I enrolled in that, got a spot in the program, and so I was one of the four. We went through the year, and I was immediately hooked. And fortunately, at the end of that year, I was offered a job, and it tried to hit the ground running and take off from there.
Sure. So what do you think is one of the coolest things that has come out of it so far? That, I mean, I know obviously if you've known what you've wanted to do since kindergarten, that's pretty impressive right there. But what are you most passionate about as far as the aspect of what you do?
That's probably managing for what's naturally out there already rather than trying to propagate something that we have developed. So that whether that be moist soil or managing a green tree reservoir to its maximum potential, just managing what's naturally out there to its maximum potential and getting the best out of each acre that we have.
Sure. Well, that's fun. I like that. What are you going to be discussing tomorrow? What are the guys going to hear?
Well, I'm talking tonight, and it's basically just introducing. I mean, everybody knows who Ducks Unlimited is, right?
Everybody does.
So it's kind of just introducing the role that I have and how people can help with the projects that we do. Jody's blessed that he works at a place where he's got funding behind him, right? Mm-hmm. Ducks Unlimited does a lot of public ground and government ground and some private ground projects. So we have to raise that money to do some of those. And one of the great things we can do is we can partner it with grant money or match money, and we can take $1 and turn it into 4 or 8 or 10 to really make a big impact on those. Because the bottom line is public ground, private ground, wherever you're looking at, conservation without money is just conversation. So I'm just going to talk to them about how we can partner together and get their philanthropic side to help us out to complete some projects to help do on a bigger scale what these guys are doing here. This is a phenomenal symposium. Keeping ducks in an area is so important if this is what your passion is. So we're just here to introduce what we do and kind of show people the vehicle that can help do this on a larger scale, which will help things, whether it's Truman Basin or Four Rivers or Shell Osage, or following the Osage River over to Meridocene and some of those compounds over there, or up north at Los Bluffs or wherever the case may be. So we're just going to be talking about that and kind of introducing folks to how they can help out a little more.
How they can help out with DU. That's awesome. Absolutely. All right. You're up next.
Oh, me. Making me talk. This weekend, what I want to get out of it, I want to meet with all these guys individually. Let's just talk about management, some of the trials and tribulations that I've had. Man, this works. This didn't work. Man, don't ever try that again, or that worked really good. And just kind of help them out along the way. Some of the stuff that we've done at Five Oaks, some of the things that Jody shared with me, and some of the stuff that I've just, hey, man, worked great. Let me help you guys out, or hey, I might learn something from these guys this weekend.
Now, most of the people that are going to be here, I don't know if you're familiar with any of them. Are they guys that are like well seasoned in wildlife or waterfowl conservation and management? Is it guys that are just, starting? Like, what kind of education are you looking to give? Are you looking to help these guys with, they already know the basics and you're really diving in, or you're starting with the basics and getting deep, or what kind of approach are you guys taking this weekend?
Well, at any training level, if you send your kid to 5th grade, they're going to work on the curve.
Sure.
They're going to work from the low end up. Mm-hmm. So how we usually approach this, and Mickey Heitmeyer's coming, we've done hundreds of talks to people. And so we'll start out and try to build it as we go over the weekend. And most of the really good stuff happens, like Daniel's talking about, sitting on the tailgate, teaching the guy to top mow his barnyard grass where he can knock the coffee weeds out of it, or, that's what I think too Josh was trying to get at. That community is like all of my clients all over the country. When I say, we got some really good moist soil, it's going to be a good moist soil year, they know what that is. And so some won't know what that is. Some will have read up on some of it. Some of them will know some plants and won't know others. So I would say between now and Saturday night, we're going to try to go from kindergarten to college. Mm-hmm. Okay? And so, because the ones that have already picked up, they'll take it. Some of them will absolutely. Now, I've been doing this a long time. Of multi-ownership clubs, I go in and say, here's the plan, let's do it. 2 of them say, let's go. 5 of them say, hell no. And then the other 2 say, I don't care. So, we'll get those kind of guys, and we've done a lot of training, and some just can't see the light. It's a lot easier to go spray Roundup, atrazine, and dual down and plant corn than to do what these guys have done up here this year. They have worked their tails off. And so you got to be scouting the fields all the time. You got to be looking for the opportunities. Mother Nature always throws you curveballs. It's been flooded 3 times after I got here. We were like, oh, it's going to be good. Jeff calls, it's under 10 foot of water. So we learned to adapt and roll with those punches. But, you're identifying plants when they're this big to know if we got a home run or we just struck out. And so then we start planting different crops. So, again, kindergarten to college in 2 days. That's our goal.
Sure, and I guess you definitely have to think on your feet, and you have to be willing to be flexible because, especially a lot of places this year had no water. Some places had way too much water. So I'm sure you have a game plan going into it, and it's got to be fluid because it's constantly changing with what Mother Nature's throwing at you there.
Yeah,
Adaptive management.
Yeah.
Adaptive management, that's a common term we use now. Brandon did, before he graduated, he did some esophageal studies looking at, what kind of food diet or the diet that the ducks had. And it was real interesting. We've tried to kill yellow nutsedge. Daniel and I have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars spraying permit on yellow nutsedge, which it is a glorified chufa. But in a lot of cases, it won't make a tuber because it's just stressed. And so he does this study. They do all this analysis, top 5 yellow nutsedge. So now we're propagating the heck out of yellow nutsedge, okay? So nobody's too old to learn,
Yeah.
okay? And just some really good things, that they've picked up. I'll tell you one real quick one. If y'all not going to be around here, this is real interesting. But nowadays, metabar coding, they can take poop out of the lower intestine of a duck. We got this study going at FOREC, Five Oaks Ag Research. They can take that poop, they can spin it in a centrifuge, they can send it off, and every plant's DNA is in this database. And it'll select out that DNA, and it'll say, he ate barnyard grass and 5 aquatic invertebrates this morning and blah, 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 blah. So how interesting that'll be. We're test driving it, so we did a real small. How many birds did y'all take?
I don't even remember. It was a few handfuls of them. It was more preliminary results to see.
We're just
exactly
seeing if it
what we're
works.
gonna get.
Sure.
But that's the kind of, if you know what they like, which Dr. Frederickson did thousands of hours with graduate students to do time and budget studies in esophageal, ground them up with blenders and looked at just some crazy things back in the 80s and 90s. But I think we're evolving. We have different weather patterns now. I mean, I'm 51, and it's not like it was when I was a kid. It's like a month and a half to towards summer. We're getting 70 inches of rain in Arkansas now instead of 55. It's just different. And so as those changes occur within those wetland basins, we need to be identifying, are we losing this type vegetation, and do we need to be replacing it with something else? So that's all our mission is with FOREC is mallard duck and bottomland hardwood, which moist soil falls under that because the first stage of succession is moist soil.
Sure.
Then it grows up in trees over time. So that's really our focus. We have a lot of good research going on. Some of it is, I wouldn't call research. I would call it baseline data collection on 16 green trees on 6,000 acres of 5 oaks, and comparing that to a lot of Heitmeyer studies on Biometa WMA. If you ever know about the largest green tree reservoir in the world, that's Biometa WMA in Arkansas County, south of Stuttgart. We sat next to that, like a quarter mile. And so what we can do with private monies is something different than unless they got NACA money like Sean was discussing. We can do lots of different things, and they're working on a master plan to try to establish the hydrology there because the trees are sick. But all in a nutshell, we got to work together. I've had private donors or private guys that I work for, and we spend $200,000 or $300,000. We use that for match on the NACA grant to build Hollowell wetland waterfowl rest area and rape plantation there in Arkansas, which are the 2 biggest ones there by Biometa. So this is a big cooperative effort.
Sure.
So your duck club's not better than my duck club, and I don't need my duck club to be better than yours. We need to work together to form that wetland complex where the ducks stay. The ducks won't stay if you don't give them what they need when they need it, okay? Because every duck wakes up different every morning. One's young, he's molting, he needs something.
Yeah.
One's old, and he's got his girlfriend already, and he don't want you to get her, so he goes hide in the shrub. So every duck is not created equal every morning. And so you have to put the buffet out to support that over a winter period.
Sure. And I think that's one thing that people need to realize. There's greater strength in numbers. So if everybody teams together, whether it be for, like resources as far as equipment or finances or anything, or partnering with Ducks Unlimited, I mean, there's so many things that people can do if everybody just plays on the same team. So I think that's very interesting. I want to hit on something that like you said, the yellow nutsedge, as far as analyzing what was in the duck that they were eating. What are like some of the, let's say, what are the top 5 things you guys found, and what are some like shockers, like kind of out of left field?
Well, that one was real out of left field there.
Yeah.
But the seed portion, not the tubers, but
Sure.
the seed portion. I'll let Brandon hit that.
I mean, number one, I think everybody would imagine this is Pennsylvania smartweed. I mean, that pink flowering plant you see out in the middle of a field in a little high spot is always number one for me. I mean, I would even want it over a lot of planted crops, even such as rice on a mild day. But I mean, anything such as the different barnyard grasses, all the echinocloas, those are always good to have. And if you manage it correctly in that same field, you can have all these at once. But Tooth cup is a great one. It's a small seeded plant. Teal, pintail go mad nuts over that thing. I don't know. There are a bajillion of them, but really the Pennsylvania smartweed is always number one on my list. Barnyard grasses are always on the list. Tooth cup is always great to see, and it goes on and on and on and on.
What came out of left field other than the
red root sedge is in the top 5 too, that they had looked at, but the yellow nut sedge was really a big one. They even picked up a little bit of sesbania, which is coffee bean, and everybody's always like, they eat coffee bean. Well, they ate a few.
Yeah.
Seeds, it's a legume, so it shatters and there's seeds out there. And I think, ducks are eating a bug, and they have the most hypersensitive, the lamella, how they filter out. Their tongues are so sensitive that they can figure out which kind of seed's what. Okay, it's pretty wicked. But they're going to get some of that. Really, the coffee bean, which has really is always been kind of a problem species, it will get up above all the grasses and it'll shade it out where you don't really get a good stand of moist soil. But they love it for thermal cover. And Daniel and I always fight with everybody. They say, we got to clean the coffee bean up. I like dispersed clumps of coffee bean in the field. We try to hit them a lot of times with a blazer right at the end while they're flowering, and the stalks will stay, but it doesn't seed, because that's what you don't want to let it seed in your pond, okay? But I would say that, we've played, Daniel's kind of perfected growing chufa, and I mean, it's a legit mallard, white-fronted goose food.
It's amazing.
And, he's learned the regime of farming it, what to spray, when to put it out, so on and so forth. And we have seen areas the size of the bed of the truck, a half a foot deep, chewed out in some of these siltier or sandy loam fields that we're planting it in. So one of our cohorts that we work with a lot, he went to college with Brandon. He runs a club up there at 6,000 acres, and we're trying peanuts over in East Delta, Arkansas this year in some loamy fields. So it works good in Oklahoma and Texas, so I don't know if it'll work over there. But we're always testing everything, but there's no magic bullet, okay? Mm-hmm. If you ate cheeseburgers every day, you going to be healthy?
No.
Well, if I eat corn every day, I'm not going to be healthy, okay, if I'm a duck. So keep that in mind, diversity. I mean, it's just like a good, complete diet that we eat, that the doctor says, man, you need to eat some salad, a lot of fiber, you need to eat way back on the red meat. The duck's the same way, except the good Lord gave him in his DNA to know what to eat, when to eat it, to sustain life.
So when looking at management for like the average Joe, somebody's got a property, how small is too small, or is there anything?
Depends on juxtaposition to other habitats. I've seen, I killed 580-something mallard ducks in 2-acre hold over around Big Lake over in northeast Arkansas back in the 90s. So it all depends on juxtaposition of the good habitat. And then there's some just unexplained places ducks go that I mean, me as a biologist, 30-year veteran, I'm like, man, I don't know why they're in there, but they like it, so I'm going to go in there and kill them, all right?
So can you take just like, let's say, pasture ground or an ag field, can you take that and then convert it into a moist soil unit, even if it wasn't historically a moist soil area?
That's what I've done for 30 years. Because WRP, that's what we did. If it was open, restorable land, that meant if we could put a dirt pan in it and build impoundment, we was going to do it. And so, I mean, there can be issues with different things. I mean, even to the effect that I've had cattle pastures. Mm-hmm. What happens when cows stay on the ground a lot? You get very intense compaction. So it traps the seed bank, and you don't get those. You get a lot of perennials because cows mow, right? Mm-hmm. Well, when you mow something all the time and it's not disc, you don't get an annual crop. You get perennials. So we would have to do some deep tillage, ripping, even mow-bore plows to turn that soil bank over to get these seeds. Lee and those guys did a study at Gaylord Lab in the 80s, and they took a grease gun, and they stuck it in the ground all over the wetland, 2 inches thick, and that took the tubes out, went through a sieve, and looked at all the different seeds that were there. Some of those 2-inch plugs had over 20,000 seeds in a 2 by 2 mm-hmm. tube. So Arctic lupine, this is an example of how long the seeds will stay in the seed bank and still germinate. Arctic lupine is a little purple flower. You've probably seen it. It's all out in Colorado. But they had dug one out of the ice cap that was 10,000 years old. Okay, BP, 10,000 BP. They germinated it. So ragweed, 75 years in the government, the Department of Agriculture actually has a silo that they maintain those seeds, and they'll pull them out every decade or whatever. Oh, got germ. So they know that those pest weeds like amaranthus that we fight a lot, just kind of blows your mind, when you think we've had several impoundments that's really good moist soil for 10 years and then just go into an ag rotation and then just suck. And then Daniel did several different treatments with cleated rollers and got the best moist soil we had in 15 years in that same impoundment. We didn't plant anything; it came. So real interesting. I mean, it's kind of a lifelong travel. It's a lifelong game of playing with the weeds. Because when you see 10 or 15, 20, even 50,000 ducks come into that red weed, it's pretty crazy.
So can somebody take, let's say they've got a cattle pond. Mm-hmm. Can you take that and cater that towards ducks without having to draw the water down?
The best wetland, okay, listen close. The best wetland's the driest wetland that I can irrigate. So drainage is the first key to managing ducks. If you can't manage the drainage, you can't manage your impoundment, whether it's Green Tree Reservoir or it's a moist soil pond. So number one's plumbing, okay? That's where we start. And from there, tillage, very important. That seed bank will tell you what's there. Frank Nelson, one of Lee's students, genius. Geomorphology is also one of my things. I had 17 publications for the Corps of Engineers with 2 doctors on potential natural vegetation models. It came from us understanding geomorphology. Frank took that and says, hey, Dr. Fredrickson, what if I did my graduate study or whatever? I can't remember if he got his doctorate, but he took that and he figured out lots of refuges were building these big impoundments that had 5 different soil types in it, and they wondered why the heck it wasn't working. Well, so they go back and redesign them on the contours where the actual soil types are. So they're going to learn that. That's a little bit, that's going to college there, okay? But they're going to learn that. I mean, this is a pretty fully loaded course here that Jeff and Josh have put on. So the answer is yes, in the right situation. You can take a lot of different things. In this part of the world, 2 soils work, Osage clay and Verdigris clay. That's where we really focus to hunt for, and you can run into sand lenses in the Verdigris, but Osage is number 1 wetland soil in southeast Kansas and around here. That's the one we look for.
Interesting. So going back to what Josh was saying here, so the guy that's only got a couple acres to work with, or, there's nothing that's too small.
I mean, look, it's your property. You can do what you want to with it. Now, would you shoot a duck every day? No, probably not. But you could maybe let them build up and shoot every other week or once a week. I mean, I've worked in Maryland, guys. A big pond's 5 acres. And so we did this same workshop with DU out there. I don't know, we started it 10 years ago. There's like hundreds of people that go to it. Never would listen, I'm planting corn. And we started growing the weeds, and they started killing ducks, and everybody hooked on to it. So that's what we were hoping here. But 5 acres, but it's sitting out there on Chesapeake Bay. Like, here's Chesapeake Bay, and there's the 5 acres. Well, they loaf and raft out on the bay, and they come in there to feed on the moist soil. So am I going to come up on the high ground on the terrace where there's no river bottom and build a 2-acre pond and shoot a lot of ducks? I'm going to shoot a duck probably, but I'm not going to consistently shoot ducks. There are arteries, and these guys know them up here way better. Daniel and I know all the arteries in Arkansas, but those flyway arteries, they're going to utilize those, and you put habitat over here, and they're not going to transverse very far away to get out of that. And the reason is, why that hen duck's really on there? Philopatry. Philopatry is the homing instinct of a mallard hen. The drakes will go with any girlfriend anywhere, okay? You partner up with me, I'll go with you. I'm in Arkansas, I'll go to the Great Lakes. I'm in Arkansas, I'll go to Colorado. We had one go to Colorado this year. So main point, they come to the same place every year. Brandon and I will do some of the a slideshow from Dr. Brian that has done in Osborne, and have done a lot of telemetry work with the backpacks. George bought a bunch of GPS backpacks for the duck. blow your mind. I take care of farms all the way to Nebraska, and my ducks go down to my places in Louisiana that my friends own, and then they go to Neosho County at one of my buddies, Barrett Sadlerly, and then they go up to Rocco's, who was the lead guitarist for Mr. Mister, and stop in the Platte River bottom in Nebraska. Same ducks. So we're all in it together, boys.
Mm-hmm.
And it can all be done with just a handful of different tools.
It can, and these guys really got it figured out. We have to have hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment, but here they're kind of co-op. Say he bought a drill, and this guy bought another tractor, and this guy's got another bush hog, and this guy's got a sprayer, and they just utilize it together. And that's another thing about that community. You know, Daniel Brandon and I do that for clubs. We got 5 Oaks, but, you know, if it's 160 acres over here, he doesn't want to go buy $200,000 worth of equipment. So we help them do that too in our local basin, our Biomeda basin, like the Osage Basin. So good stuff.
So when managing a wetland area, what is like the ideal growing season looking like? Like, what do you hope for to have the best year possible?
Okay, in most cases, depending on floods, of course, the first 45 days of the growing season, and you got about a 200 to 240 right here. I got 280 days in Stuttgart, okay? So if you ever bought a tree at Walmart or an azalea and it said you're in hardy zone 5, well, moist soil works the same. Frost-free days, so we got so many days. What we really try to do mostly is work in the first 90 days of that growing season. First 45 we call a early drawdown. Second one, the second 45, we call a mid-season drawdown. The third one is a late drawdown, anything after 90 days. So how you fluctuate the water and what you do with that water is probably the most critical of all, because you open that screw gate and drain it all, what happens? Is your soil moist? Let me ask you all this question. Is your soil moist if you do a really rapid drawdown and you got 100-degree days?
No.
It's going to dry out like that, right? So we want to slowly, incrementally draw that down about 1 inch a day over the course of weeks. And there's different plant communities down the gradient. Most guys that manage moist soil, they say they're managing moist soil. They go pull all the boards the day after duck season, and they come back and put them in and pump it up. Mm-hmm. That is not moist soil management.
Isn't there a risk of having different undesirable vegetation growing up because of that?
Absolutely. That's the number one cause for its rapid drawdowns.
And that rapid drawdown will make the field almost select for one species exclusively most of the time. You do a rapid drawdown, a lot of times you'll just get one species that propagates the entire field, whereas a slow drawdown eases the water back ever so steadily across different parts of the field, and you get different species diversifying that one field.
So when you start your drawdown process, that's before the growing season starts or during it?
Let me tell you, I can get real critical. So my mentor was Lee's best friend, Lee Frederickson's best friend. Mm-hmm. And he got to try all the techniques the practitioner does. And that's where all my knowledge came from, one man, besides Lee and Mickey. But, I mean, in 1996, Phil Covington, he was the manager at Ted Shanks in Bush. He went to work for DU, building WRP. He walks in my office. I was a little kid, about like him, sitting there in the desk, scared to death. This man's coming in. I don't know. He's supposed to be the superstar moist soil manager of all times. And I'm like, I always wondered about growing those weeds, you know. He exposed me to that, and it changed my life. And I promised him. He passed away too early. And he was in his deathbed, and I said, I promise I'll carry on, and I'll teach people the art, because he's the guy that really figured out how to top mow moist soil when it had broadleafs in it to get the grass to come, how to deal with Boltonia, how to deal with so many of these species. But the everlasting thing that set out is that if you took a table of all the plants that's in that wetland out there, when you do the drawdown, it has to line up with the ambient temperature, the soil moisture, and the texture of the soil for that particular plant to germinate. So when he tells you they drop the water off, whatever's going on with the weather, he could drop it off rapidly, and we get 5 inches of rain over 2 or 3 weeks, and you get good stuff because it's staying moist. That's all it is, moist soil. You don't let it dry out. The biggest thing we do at Five Oaks that's perpetuated incredible moist soil management is we irrigate, because all the places were set up for rice culture. So we raise rice, and now it's in conservation. And we got great drainage, and we got great irrigation. And so, like, I don't know if you've been in the rice country before, but you flood rice, right? Well, so most of our techniques are really focused around our rice culture, because that's what we farmed for Daniel's grandparents and several generation farmers. So we took farming practices and plugged it into conservation. Is really where all this came from Phil teaching us just all the different ways to manage with the different tools.
So you're drawing water out slowly, and then does it ever go completely no water, no standing water, but the soil staying moist?
Yep.
And then you start your tilling process and disking and spraying and maintaining and trying to cultivate the plants that you're looking for.
Depending on, here's kind of my rule of thumb. Up here it would be, it's usually about the end of June. But at our latitude, because remember, every latitude's got a little different play. I've grown the moist soil all the way to Gaydon at the intercoastal waterway, and all the way up to Nebraska. It's all about timing. So we start that drawdown, the early drawdown, like we're talking about. We don't get adequate rains. We may get really bad invasive plants coming. It could get too wet, and we get invasive plants. But our moist soil ponds are not monocultures. They're not going to be a monoculture of moist soil in most cases. They're not going to be a monoculture of a crop. So if, say it's 100 acres, say 50 of it's really good, say 25% of it's okay, and 25% is not any good at all. By the 4th of July, we're going to make a decision on that 25% that's not good at all, and that was so-so. And in most cases, the so-so turns out to be good if we get the adequate rain or we irrigate it, and the 25% goes into something like a cover crop like millet. So when you fly over Five Oaks, the rest ponds in Five Oaks, it's going to look like a quilt your grandmother quilted. It's going to be a different color. It's going to be different habitats, all due to we work with Mother Nature and irrigation. And so that's really what I hope I get over to these guys this week. Look how beautiful is a cornfield. I mean, it's pretty good, especially when there's 50,000 over it, and it's about 28 degrees right before it freezes up. But the biggest thing that we're pushing, and Mr. Dunklin's really allowed us to push the envelope really hard towards the moist soil. We're about 67%. Daniel and I talked about it this morning. Almost 70% of all of our land mass that's rest area is moist soil. It's warmer. And Dr. Heitmeyer in '84, he figured out that ducks use different habitats at different times, like I was telling you. It's a habitat usage. The warmer it is, the more they eat moist soil. And last year's a great example. They killed them. I think we had over 50% last year moist soil across the whole farm. Now we're shooting them in the green tree, okay? Don't get me wrong. We don't shoot the moist soil. It's the rest pond. But when it's hot and dry, the less hot foods we have, the more ducks we kill if we have more moist soil. The colder it is, you better have some hot food, because they're going to come. And it's almost like when you dial up the big northwest wind and it's 28 and it's going to 17, they're going to the hot food. And that can be rice or milo or corn or millet, but millet's more of a moist soil plant than it is a hot food. So anyway, that's kind of, in a nutshell, that's what we're thinking every day. We're guiding and we're looking and we're going, what's the temperature? What's the wind? What are they going to eat today? What are they eating today? What are they going to eat tomorrow? So it's all about food. I state this many times in my career, the man with the most food wins.
They want a full belly.
They want to be fat and happy.
So if anybody listening to this podcast has any interest in looking you guys up, seeing what you guys do, how do they find you?
Just look on the, you can just email me at jpagan@eco-sps.com.
And we have an Instagram now, Ecosystems Protection Service. No spaces.
That's a long one.
Yeah, it is.
One of my friends says, I can't even pronounce it. I said, well, there you go.
Fair enough. What's the number one mistake you see guys making when they're trying to dive in and they're like, okay, I want to start really improving my ground for ducks? Like, what's the number one mistake you see? Because I'm sure there's people listening that are like, well, I'm going to try diving into this, but I haven't gotten any expert help. I've got a little bit of equipment that I'm borrowing from friends. Like, what?
Let me give you top three.
Okay, top three.
Top
That's
three.
perfect.
Number one, they don't have the drainage correct. Okay. Number two, they most of the time disc up really good moist soil and don't know it because they don't know their plants.
So plant identification.
Plant identification is critical, and there's so many good books. That book that y'all were talking about, the Waterfowl Handbook, every picture in there, I took that. And because the NRCS did not have a book that showed the pictures of the plants. And we're like, and so then we got Lee to do all of his handbooks, and we put it in that little book. But those pictures were non-existent. And then Mississippi State did a great job putting this new book together. I mean, it is incredible. You can really identify picture books if you don't know how to run a dichotomous key, So those, and then the last but not least is that they're just hard-headed and say, I got to have hot food. Because they saw that big bunch of ducks that one day on that corn. And so I'll close with this. A cornfield is great when it's cold, as I said. But that cornfield, when they eat it all, when it gets below 55 pounds of forage per acre, they're gone and they're not coming back. Moist soil holds a steady number of ducks throughout the season because they're not only eating seeds but aquatic invertebrates. When they're getting ready to go back to the prairies, mama needs calcium, so she's eating snails and physa snails and gastropods and copepods and all these squiggly things that's in the water column. And so, that's the real reason behind rice is the same way. Milo's the same way. When they finish that hot crop, they're leaving it and they're not coming back. So that's my biggest thing is hold ducks throughout the season, not 50,000 for 5 days because then they eat it up and they're gone. So now I wouldn't mind you planting some around 5 Oaks where we didn't have to spend $500 an acre, and then I'll play off you. So the other critical thing I think, and this comes back to community, is I thought I was going to close, but one more point.
No, keep going. That's all right.
Okay, is that somebody's got to grow the corn. Somebody's got to have the moist soil. Somebody's got to have really good pin oak woods flooded. Somebody's got to have shrub. Somebody's got to have open water. So that's how we get to this point is these workshops and these symposiums and really building the public to understand it's not about you. It's about the habitat. And that's why I've been a lifelong DU volunteer, because I believe in habitat, because that's what I manage, and it's made me a really good living. So,
well, and in case you guys haven't noticed by now, Jody is extremely modest. You're not going kindergarten to college. This is way past college. This is. It's too bad everybody can't be at this, right? Because it is one of the most impressive groups of knowledge that there is. And this Osage Basin is very cool, what Jeff's done down here and their little co-op that they've formed where everybody helps everybody. It's too bad everybody can't figure that out. Now, they don't want everybody to figure it out because it moves ducks from where they are. But this is a special place and a special group of people that are doing incredible things. So it's very cool. I'm very thankful that they put something like this together. It does nothing but help everybody. So,
Josh, any other words?
No, I'm good.
No. Anybody else want to say anything? The mic is yours if you want to chime in.
Anybody got a good story to end it on?
Yeah. Somebody's got to have a good story.
How do you top Jeff's story?
Well, a torn ACL at the Sitka Olympics, yeah. Or MCL, yeah.
Riding a bouncy ball.
Yeah, exactly.
hey, I would say I really appreciate y'all doing this
Absolutely.
because more exposure brings more people to the understanding of management. So thank y'all.
Oh, absolutely.
Just been fantastic.
Understand,
Yeah.
moist soil is the limiting factor in the Mississippi Flyway. You control the limiting factor, you better believe the hunting's going to get a lot better. So just leave it at that.
That's a good
That's
way to
that's a
end
good
it.
way to
right?
end it.
Yep, that's a wrap. All right, guys, we hope you enjoyed today's podcast. If you did, go ahead and give us a subscribe. That way you're going to get a notification every time we put out a new podcast. Chandler, what else should they do?
Go to our social media pages and give us a like on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube. Get us subscribed to YouTube channel. We do product reviews there, and then giveaways is a great part of our social media as well.
And then we just want to thank you guys for what you guys do and support us so we can do stuff like this. So thank you.